Of college football? Then you have to earn it. Come with a hunger that you know will never stop.
You're either elite or you're not. And that's what we've been saying.
Be consistent, but unpredictable.
We're not going to let somebody tell us what we should be.
Don't fear falling, because you know how to get back up. Shine a little brighter, stretch a little further, all so you can climb just a little bit higher. Simply put, win. Then win again, and again, and again. Make your case.
Let the carnage and the chaos continue.
Then let the debate begin.
It's hard not to be a little snarky because simply put, win and win and win again unless the wins aren't in the right places against the right teams at the right times. I mean, the rankings are out. The committee has spoken, and it is our job for the next hour to react to it. It's Rankings Reaction presented by Cheez-It, Mike Golic Jr., Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. You threw your Cheez-Its everywhere earlier. That's how upset she was. We have been eating for the last hour doing the same thing that you're doing, watching the committee rankings come out, watching Reese and the guys react to all of it. And I don't know that we saw a lot of surprise. I'll be honest, guys. There wasn't a lot of surprise. But I was still eating the Cheez-Its all up in my feels because I thought there was an opportunity. I'll be honest. I thought maybe all of the chatter from last week would cause the committee to rethink some things, and then you go in and you vote again, and it's based every week on you've opened the book all over again, right? Mm-hmm. So this week, when you look at the new full body of work, were they going to see anything differently? And the answer is, for the most part, no. The top 7 are exactly who the top 7 were. Were you surprised?
I'm not surprised at all because they didn't take any L's. I mean, last week it was the same thing that we said. Like, even though, the top teams didn't, oops, I just spit, perform every week. I'm not even on camera, and I just told everybody, I just ousted myself. Even though the top teams didn't perform very well, since they didn't take any L's, they didn't move. And I didn't think that anybody was going to move in the top 7 because they didn't take any L. So it made sense to me.
Well, and that, Mike, I keep looking at it. Now we do this fun thing where we show everybody the top 7. They're there. Georgia.
Yeah,
Georgia, number 1.
Let's ask the real journalism question here. When did we just decide it was going to be the 7 final graphic now?
7.
For the last 6 years or 7 years, we have done a top 6 on the final graphic panel here. But now, just because the committee did a thing with Michigan and Michigan State, we give them equal footing here. It's interesting to me. It makes me go,
Yeah, I am curious, if at the end of the day, Michigan State gets their butt kicked this weekend, is it going to still be the case? Are we still going to do 7 deep? I don't know the answer to that. Are they going to show us 7 or show us 6? But what I do know is that I thought maybe because Michigan struggled a little bit against, Penn State, who was not ranked by the committee going into that game, and then we saw Michigan State go in and absolutely, just manhandle Maryland. I thought, okay, Michigan State came out knowing, like I said last week, they told Cincinnati exactly what to do. Sparty knew what to do. They came out and did it. I thought maybe now the whole body of work would lean towards Michigan State, but it didn't. As you see there, we still have Michigan in at 6 and Michigan State at 7.
Yeah, Jason, I thought what you thought, that we have a very human committee, and that is supposed to be the benefit of the system. I know there's a lot of people weighing in on the validity of the playoff system and the way things are done. And I understand no system is perfect, but the whole concept of going away from the BCS that everyone hated so much when we were all in school. When I say we, I mean me and Christine, because you're an old person, Jason.
But ageism joke
when we were in school that everyone hated was this idea of getting human beings to see past what the computer would see. And so that's supposed to be the charge in all this. But the other part of that is I thought they might see a lot of the pressure, a lot of the notes made about the logic of ranking Oregon above Ohio State while you still have Michigan above Michigan State. But clearly, they stuck to what they saw here. Like Christine pointed out, chalk holes, and it makes life pretty easy.
By the way, Christine, you think there's any shot? It's I'm giving you a chance to chew because she's got a handful of Cheez-It. Do you think there's any chance it's jury duty? They all turn off their TVs and their radios and they don't listen to any of this? If you're on the committee, do you just have to spend the whole week sequestered only watching college football?
If you listen to anybody else on the committee, you would probably go insane. And also, I feel like they have to only listen to themselves because we have so many things to say, and so many different people have different opinions. There's no way they're listening to anything that anybody else is saying.
And we say this every week. I often say you can't get 13 people to agree on what the best pizza place in town is. And, like, for me, the closest thing I'll ever know to any of this is I have a Grammy vote. And, the process of Grammy voting for me, though, is super interactive. Like, I do talk to everybody. Like, I have a vote for the Biletnikoff Award in college football for the wide receiver of the year. I talk to as many smart people as possible to make sure I'm seeing it the right way. So that's part of why I thought, maybe the committee would, they've had all week. But
the biggest thing is, even though sometimes it doesn't matter, is teams are taking L's and they're playing each other. That's the difference. Like,
yeah.
I feel like those things are like, they're subjective, right? They depend on somebody's opinion as much as they do stats and stuff like that. But these teams are going head to head. And even though sometimes head to head doesn't matter, these teams are actually taking L's and actually winning and losing.
Right, like that, and that is still supposed to be the thing as the bedrock of this,
right,
is that going on here. And that's the thing, like, we're going to talk to Gary Barta, the chairperson of the playoff committee, here in a couple minutes. And there are two statements that I think really stuck out to everyone tonight. The first one, Jason, and I know your ears perked up when we saw this, was that there is, strength of schedule matters. This is when Gary was asked about Cincinnati. And he said, they have a lot of respect for them at 5th, but the reason strength of schedule matters is why you could have a team with 1 loss potentially ahead of them, or in a rare case, 2 losses ahead of them. And I know your ears perked up a lot for that.
I was stunned because Gary said it so casually. That's why a team with 1 loss or even 2 losses could be ahead of an undefeated team. We've been asking repeatedly, what are the chances that a 2-loss Alabama gets in? Well, I think Gary Barta just gave us the answer to that. Like, depending on how those 2 losses come, pretty damn good. And that, to me, that's a little surprise to hear. I try to listen to the nuance in the answer. And to me, I walked away from that saying, man, that door has been cracked open. And the door to the Cheez-Its being consumed at a larger level.
The door to these ones, they got a little spicy.
Wait. We're just going to take a time out here. What the hell just happened to me? Like, how is it that both bowls have gone this direction?
We figured you wouldn't want it because you're a Biletnikoff voter.
Well, you
by the way,
for back
I was going to say, I'm a Heisman voter, so it ain't a thing. But
see, that is so cool. Like, I want that.
Oh, I know it is.
Like, I can't imagine that feeling.
I vote on, I don't know.
I vote on moving that Cheez-It bowl over here.
This is the one that needs to be moved. This one was over there. I grabbed this from there. Mike slid that.
Listen, I have needs, and they're being met by this bowl. All right. Wow.
Mike cheated. I mean, I don't know why I'm complaining. I'm like literally.
Right. You're in the middle. You can get
all we got to do is do this, and now you win ultimately in this. I don't know why we use this dang table.
This is why I worked out today, was just so that I could eat as many Cheez-Its as I possibly want.
I'm unsure what this flavor is, but it's fire.
I will say, Jason claims to work out. He came running into the studio to do a hit for us on radio. I have never seen someone suck wind harder than Jason did. I thought he was going to die in my arms like a sweet little baby.
One of us can fit in a medium, and his name isn't Mike Golic Jr., so I'm just saying. If you want to have a beach body competition.
I mean, that's fine. I'd fit into a medium, too, if I was 5'6".
I'm 5'9.25", thank you very much. By the way, my body fat percentage way down. Anyway, let's get to 8 through 10, because they're in my ear saying none of you care about how I look naked. 8.
Ooh, yes. I forgot about this.
A school I've never heard of is at 8. At number 9.
Oh, I was like, what?
Oklahoma State. At 10 is Wake Forest.
I was like, why would you ever say that out loud? And then I saw who it was. My conspiracy theory still holds strong.
Oh, yes.
I was very, very concerned when Oklahoma lost. However, now seeing that Oklahoma State has a prime entryway into the top 4, I feel like they do.
Oh,
and I can't wait to talk to both Heather and Gary about this.
No, there's only one problem with your theory.
Right.
Your theory actually presumes that any of these Big 12 teams are going to win these games. Like, your theory was great with Oklahoma. The problem was that Oklahoma wasn't good enough to win the football game.
It doesn't presume that they would win, but it says that if they win, they have a clear path into the CFP.
Well, one person
they do.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it in a second. We'll get to Christine's conspiracy theories. But let's talk to somebody that doesn't need conspiracy theories, because he's in the room when it happens every single week. week. Gary Barta, the College Football Playoff Committee Chair, joins us. I appreciate your time. And I always say this to you every week, but I will remind the world you have the unenviable job of trying to defend what 13 different people voted on in this process. So we genuinely appreciate it. Now that I've been kind, I've got questions for you, Gary. So realistically, I'm going to be the voice of the fan for a second because I'm seeing on Twitter all of these questions about, your answer to who you play matters, and a 2-loss team could even get in front of an undefeated team, and head-to-head may not matter. What's your response to college football fans that are on social media right now asking if playing the games actually matters?
Wow, that's a broad one to throw down the middle. Of course they matter. I mean, that's what we evaluate every week. We take a look at the games that have been played. We line them up 1 through 25, and we rank them. In all seriousness, the focus on head-to-head it is important, but it's not the only thing that we evaluate. If it were, Notre Dame, right now maybe they'd be considered against Cincinnati, or maybe Texas A&M considered to be ahead of Alabama. I know those are extreme examples, or at least the Alabama-Texas A&M one is, but that's one of the factors we look at. We look at the wins and losses. We look at head-to-head. We look at common opponents. We look at statistically offense and defense, and we break down strength of schedule. So we look at all of that, and then 13, by design, it's subjective. 13 people take all that data, talk about it, debate it, and then rank and cast our votes.
So one of the things that you said is you guys focus on strength of schedule, you focus on resume, and I just read a blind resume on .com between two teams, Team A and Team B. And Team A had a slightly better blind resume, and they had a higher strength of schedule, but they were ranked significantly lower than Team B. It's Oklahoma State and Ohio State, 2 OSUs. So when you think about Oklahoma State, do you feel like you guys have overlooked that team at all?
I don't feel like we've overlooked Oklahoma State at all. The committee thinks very highly of Oklahoma State. They've been playing incredible defense all year. They have a terrific win against Baylor. As of lately, their offense has been becoming more of a factor. So the committee thinks very highly of Oklahoma State. That's why we have them at number 9 this week. And we'll watch the games ahead and continue to evaluate them.
And Gary, Oklahoma State, like a lot of the teams in the Big Ten, certainly going to have chances on the field to add to those resumes down the stretch here. We know the subject of a lot of this comparison and contrast has been about Michigan being ranked ahead of Michigan State. And you guys talked about tonight, statistically, if you put away the game, look at Michigan's body of work as a team this year, there is, a clear distinction of them being ahead of Michigan State here. Ohio State and Oregon are the comparison that gets brought up because Ohio State, there is no statistical place I can find where Oregon outpaces them by any stretch of the imagination. And so when you get down to it, what is the biggest differentiator for you guys when it comes to those specific comparisons?
Well, each one is considered separately among themselves. So with Oregon and Ohio State, we do look at who Ohio State has beaten. They've beaten. They won at Minnesota, and they beat Purdue, and they beat Penn State. Good wins, but they don't yet have that signature win, that top 5, top 10 win. On the flip side, Oregon has that top 10 win, top 5 win, and it was at Ohio State. It was in the Horseshoe. They also won at UCLA. They beat Fresno State. They're playing much better offense week by week as it goes. So we look at statistics, certainly. We look at the games that are played. And in this case, when the vote occurs with those 13 members, there still is enough uncertainty between those two to take head-to-head as a deciding factor. When it comes to Michigan and Michigan State, you look at those two teams. I said a week ago, and this week the committee reconfirmed that a more total football team. Michigan State certainly gets credit for beating Michigan head-to-head. This past week, Michigan went on the road at Penn State, over 100,000 people, a hostile environment. They came from behind to win. Michigan State looked good beating Maryland. But when the vote is taken, and that's the thing I have to keep reminding people, is every week 13 members re-vote. And so if somebody changes their vote or doesn't change their vote, and in this case, the vote carried the day again that Michigan came out ahead of Michigan State.
We joked about it earlier, Gary, but I'm genuinely curious. There's so much chatter about the rankings. Last week, we all spent days on radio yelling about it. Does the committee ever talk about the reactions that come from it? Like, is that part of the conversation for you guys at all?
We know when we leave the room if there's a decision that we've made as a committee, or we can pretty much guess what the fans or the media might focus on, particularly after we see coming out of the room, how that compares to other polls. But at the end of the day, the 13 people who committed to being on the committee are committed to setting that aside, taking the expertise in the room, taking the evaluation in the room, and putting the top 25 the way we see it, and then expecting and understanding that there's going to be some team or some group of teams every week that are going to be upset about it.
Gary, every week I got to ask you when we get to talk to you. Last time it was a pull-apart sweetbread of some sort. What was the delight on the buffet this time?
Wow, after the first couple of weeks, I looked at the scale before I got here, so I went strictly Caesar salad this week.
Gary, we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us as always, man. Thank you for answering the question so honestly. You don't have an enviable job. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I wouldn't want to defend what Mike says about anything, so I can't imagine. Every week I think there's this moment where Gary's just sitting back, having, something off the buffet table, and he looks over and he's like, man, really, you're going to make me answer questions about that? It's a difficult position. Christine, we got social media responses out there?
Yeah, let's talk about what Jim said.
Oh, Jim.
Jimmy C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Jimmy, bunch of numbers.
He says, I only want Ohio State in the CFP so they can get beat by 30 to Georgia.
I mean, if that's the delineation, then congratulations. I think that's likely to happen to just about everybody this year.
Yeah, we got to, none of this is really about who has, we have to remember, in the whole college football playoff conversation, very little of this is about changing who is actually going to win this thing.
Right.
Georgia is probably going to win it all. They're a terrifying Death Star of a football team. Accept it. Run from it all you want. Either way, it is inevitable.
I said to you earlier on your show, the great Canty and Golic Jr., that you can listen to on ESPN radio every single day. I said at the time, Georgia took on the highest paced offense they were going to see all year. Everybody tried to make it this could be a tricky game. The stomach flu ravaged the defensive side of the football. They had to use a completely different rotation. They gave up 10 points? I know Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's a great football team, but Georgia absolutely manhandles everybody at this point.
Let's talk about Tyler.
Ooh, hi, Tyler.
Tyler says, okay, maybe Michigan being ahead of MSU doesn't make sense, but how is Cincinnati ahead of both Michigan and Michigan State? What a joke.
Listen, again, at some point, winning all the games does have to matter. And one thing Gary mentioned in there that the more I sit with it now is tough to stomach, and it's a big part of the Cincinnati conversation of this. Cincinnati's got an outstanding win. Notre Dame is the number 8 team in the country. They went on the road and did not trail in that game. Mm-hmm. They were ahead the entire time in this one. He referenced in this, Ohio State does not have a marquee win. That Oregon has a great win like that. And so that's certainly the justification for Cincinnati. It makes the conversation around Michigan pretty hard because who have they beat? Michigan's best win is a loss to Michigan State in a close enough game for the committee to excuse away.
Their best win is a loss.
Look at the rest of Michigan's schedule and tell me who else it was. Michigan has wins against Washington, who just fired their head coach. Rutgers, I guess ranked Wisconsin, who Notre Dame also beat. Northwestern, IU, Penn State this weekend, who was unranked. Show me the marquee win on their schedule. It ain't there.
I think we also, this is a trick, there's benefit of the doubt suddenly being given to Penn State, which I'm supposed to buy. But at the same time, the committee's had the opportunity to rank Penn State and hasn't. So,
Oh, believe me, you heard me shout last week about that, the fact that they were unranked, but Iowa was ranked.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting here hearing that it's supposed to be a good win because you won in Penn State against a good Penn State team, but you had to come back to do it, and you were unranked at the time. Penn State was unranked at the time. I just don't understand the love that the committee's given. What else you got, Christine?
All right, let's talk about Max, who just says the CFP committee isn't real.
It's very real.
I do like a nihilist kind of view of things.
And I'm trying to figure out what exactly he means by that, because like it's obviously real. That's why there's so many mistakes, because they're
this
human
is
beings.
that stupid theory that comes through all the time. And look, I like
what, that we're living in a simulation?
Oh no, that
I actually kind of like that one.
Okay, so understand this about me with conspiracy theories. I don't really care about them because, like, at the end of the day, if I'm living in a simulation, I can't do anything about it. Like, if we didn't land on the moon, I don't really care. It doesn't change my day in, day out existence. I can tell you that the College Football Playoff Committee is real, though. There's really 13 people that sit down and vote.
Have you been in the room with them?
I mean,
that's true.
I've spoken to many of them.
That's fine.
But how do you know that they're real?
Like, again,
what if they're robots?
Have you been inside the room? This is kind of like a Schrodinger's cat situation where we haven't been inside the box.
But we do know that Heather Dinich sits outside the door and waits for them to finish. That is
true.
Right. So we think Heather's just sitting in there. Like, Heather knows they're real.
Here's a question, or not a question, but I want to read Austin's tweet and then ask a question. So Ohio State jumping Oregon is inevitable when the entire body of work is considered. The selection committee should stop messing around and admit what everybody already knows. However, is that inevitable?
Yes, if Ohio State wins out, they're gonna jump Oregon. Yeah, for sure. Because Ohio State will have beaten Michigan.
They're gonna have a couple of ranked wins on their resume before that. Oregon doesn't have a chance.
But remember, the committee, Gary Barta flat out told us. We tried to ask him a couple of weeks ago a question about the future, and he said we don't consider the future.
Right.
We only consider the game as to right now. So you can't judge by what any of us think is going to happen by the way the whole committee is designed. They're only allowed to look at what's happened so far.
By the way, have we showed the other rankings yet for the rest of this?
No, we really should do that.
By the way, are all these people actually verified?
No.
I mean,
I had questions about.
Austin definitely is.
Well, I mean, we had like dude bunch of numbers before who was verified, so I just had questions about the verification process.
Jim is not verified.
We're just trying to help Jim out. This is 11 through 15. Wisconsin continues to be a weekly for the committee, for us about the committee. Oklahoma falls 5 down to 13, and Baylor ekes up 2 to 11. I'm a little surprised by Oklahoma falling. I mean, I thought they'd fall farther than that, and I thought Baylor might get a little more.
You thought they'd fall farther than that? They fell, what, 5 spots?
They fell 5. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think they were living in a house of cards to begin with, and, I keep saying it. The Kansas game was a sour apple Skittle in my mouth the whole time. Like, you couldn't get the terrible taste of it out of everything we've seen. And Oklahoma's had more weeks where they didn't look like they knew what they were doing offensively than they did.
I mean, they obviously don't know what they're doing offensively.
Right.
Because
No,
they
that
don't
being
know
said,
their quarterbacks don't really.
They still have a chance to bust up the whole party here because they can absolutely still hand an Oklahoma State team a loss in Bedlam.
So you feel like if Oklahoma beats Oklahoma State in that matchup, then Oklahoma still has a chance to get into the CFP?
I don't think they have a chance to get into the CFP, no, but they have a chance to make sure that the rest of the Big 12 doesn't.
I feel like Baylor, I feel like Heather, though, did say that if Oklahoma has one loss, they would have a better chance to get into the CFP than Cincinnati would still with that one loss.
We get to ask her that.
Yeah, we'll find out. A&M, by the way, fell 5 spots to Iowa. Remember when they were number 2? They go up 3 spots, so they're at the 17. Pittsburgh goes up 3. San Diego State goes up 3. NC State plummets 4 spots, and then Arkansas goes up 4. That gives us a little bit of an opportunity for a big SEC matchup. I'm saying
that is true. What is it? Alabama, Arkansas this week?
Alabama, Arkansas this week.
More importantly, though, meat, baby. Look at the Roadrunners move up another spot here. I'll tell you, like every chance I get, if you want to go watch some fun football here, UTSA's got you covered. They play damn good football. It's a mighty good time, and the biggest part of that, Houston ranked now.
Yeah, Houston ranked. That's the biggest thing we'll keep talking about. But in the meantime, let's get some conspiracy theories answered with the great Heather Dinich, college football reporter extraordinaire.
Frame it like that for her. How dare you?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just going to start with, see, this is what happens, Heather. They like to have all of these conversations when you're not in the room, and then they act all professional when you get here. So somebody tweeted us and said the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't actually exist. It's not real. You sat outside the door. Can you attest to the fact that there are real people voting on this?
I hate you, Jason.
I can confirm that there are real people. I have been in the room. As a matter of fact, when I was there for the first ranking, there are so many new people. They went around the room and they all introduced themselves to me. It was very kind of them. So, made some friends, had some chats, left. They're all in there. They're working. They're doing their thing. I promise.
I do want to know if they had to like give you a fun fact like when you were in grade school.
This reminds me of the first time I ever did a show with Mike. We had to go around the room and all say who we were and you know where we came from. And I remember looking at Mike awkwardly being like, "Hi, I'm a musician. I don't know why the hell I'm in this room." All right, Heather, you tweeted out you didn't expect any massive changes. So did anything stand out to you in this statement from the committee that you think changes the way we should be viewing anything?
Well, I think we learned something about the Big 12, right? Oklahoma State is still within shooting distance of this thing, and Oklahoma is not. And a lot of it has to do with the way that they've played. They have not looked like a top 25 team. So not only have they dropped behind 1-loss teams, but they've dropped behind 2-loss teams, Ole Miss and Baylor as well. And so I don't think the Big 12 is out of this yet, but I think based on the rankings that we saw tonight, Oklahoma State is clearly the Big 12's best hope at the college football playoff. And when you look at what they have, they are number 6 in strength of record. They have the 10th most difficult remaining schedule. But at the same time, it's a catch-22, guys, because what is a win against Oklahoma really worth in the eyes of the committee? It just got devalued tonight.
That was going to be my question. Because I'm the Big 12 conspiracy theorist, as you know. So my question was going to be, was the likelihood that Oklahoma State still has a path into the CFP? But instead, I want to ask you this, because Gary Barta said something very interesting tonight. He said that a 2-loss team could possibly be in the playoff. There's no real rules. These are the rules. What is the likelihood that a 2-loss team actually get into the playoff this year?
Well, if you're looking at Alabama losing a close game to Georgia, that's the most realistic scenario that jumps right to my head. And one of the things that was interesting that he said, though, on the teleconference to reporters was that there was a lot of debate around teams 2, 3, and 4, which is interesting to me. Maybe Alabama's position at number 2 isn't as solid as it seems right now. So we have to see how that plays out. But as it sits there today, if Alabama loses to Georgia in a close game, you could certainly see them staying in the top 4, maybe dropping to 4, but it depends on what happens in the other conferences. And what's crazy tonight, guys, is that you could still have a 2-loss Oregon and a 2-loss Ohio State each win their conferences. So then what happens? So it's certainly not impossible, but I do think that Alabama would be the best realistic possibility for that happening right now.
Heather, how big a deal is it actually for Cincinnati that Houston has now crept into the top 25, the team that sits atop the American right now, and would, if the season ended today, be their likely opponent in the American Conference Championship?
I think it's significant because that does give them a ranked opponent in the conference championship game, one more opportunity to impress the selection committee. And one of the other things that Gary Barta was asked today was, has there been any consideration for flipping Notre Dame ahead of Cincinnati in spite of the head-to-head at this point? And his answer was an honest no. We haven't talked about that yet. Would they talk about that if you have a 1-loss Cincinnati and a 1-loss Notre Dame that both didn't have a conference championship game? Does that conversation change? It might. Does it help if they lose a close game to a ranked Houston as opposed to an unranked Houston? All of those tiny details factor into that conversation. So if nothing else, it certainly cannot hurt Cincinnati that Houston is now in that top 25.
Heather, how much did Mike beg you to write an article supporting why Notre Dame could make it into the college football playoff? Because, you know, we knew the minute that happened, that had to be from Mike.
The Cheez-Its are in the mail.
See? Heather knows what's really up right here.
Is there, in your mind, though, is there a real shot for Notre Dame to make the college football playoff?
Well, I asked Gary Barta for Mike tonight what they thought about Notre Dame, and he did say that this is the second week in a row he's talked about Notre Dame's schedule, and they did beat Purdue. They did beat Wisconsin. Last week, Purdue was ranked. This week, they're not, but those are 2 good wins, but that's pretty much where it stops because Georgia Tech and Stanford are a combined 6-13. Notre Dame has to look like a top 4 team in each of these next 2 weeks, I think, to really get serious consideration. Plus, they have to have chaos in the Power 5 conference championship games. It would help to have Alabama get that second loss and certainly at least get into a debate with a 1-loss Cincinnati.
So you're telling Mike there's a chance. Heather, as always, you're the best. We appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, it is time now for Crunch Time, brought to you by Cheez-It. You know what we do here. We take a look at some of the best moments from over the weekend in college football. And we'll start with the upset that had everybody yelling and screaming. Lance Leipold in Kansas going for it on a 2-point conversion.
No, that's the touchdown.
That's the touchdown.
First.
That's the touchdown.
Then they go for it on the 2-point conversion. Devin Neal on the score there. And then the decision to go for 2 in the first overtime period. When you don't have to, you get the Jalen Daniels scramble. And then how about Jared Casey, the walk-on fullback tight end, had not played an offensive snap for them until this game. I saw his parents recorded a video from the opposite end zone. Like, that is peak college football.
Lance Leipold can coach. I'm excited for him. Michigan up next, taking on Penn State. Wolverines down 3 late. Cade McNamara slings that pass. Swiggity swooty, he's going for the booty. 47 yards to the house.
I hate when you do that.
Swiggity swooty, he's going for the booty. There we go. It's my touchdown call.
What does that mean?
I mean,
that only works when Jake Butt's the tight end for Michigan.
Well, no, it works
that
for everybody.
Been the case for a while.
Booty, like pirate treasure. He's going for the treasure. He wants to score the
He's
end
giving
zone.
it his all.
Pressure. Let's go next to South Dakota. This one was crazy because you had a moment where they shouldn't have gotten the ball back, but South Dakota actually heaved the ball up and left 1 second on the clock. So South Dakota State comes in. That's how you drew it up.
Oh, my God.
Roll up all over everywhere. Yeah, it was incredible. He wiggled, got loose, threw the ball deep, and then look at just roll. Roll.
See my eyes? Roll them.
Oh, maybe we'll roll with it. And just because we got Mike, thought we'd get in this little play. Rutgers.
Oh!
What's this, Mike?
Big fella. That's that thick six. You know it's mine, Booger McFarland. Stop stealing stuff.
Yeah, I mean.
That's, by the way, Raekwon O'Neal's second career touchdown. He is a certified weapon. Our thick king deserves your respect. Go to his Wikipedia bio, change him to prospective NFL wide receiver, and let everybody know that these hands, in fact, work.
We are going to end up with ESPN on ESPN rivalry going on because Booger said thick six the other day, did not credit Mike Golic Jr. So, Booger, he's coming for you. All right, don't forget that Cheez-It is running the MV Cheese fan contest this season. Use hashtag MV Cheese contest. Tweet a photo or video that shows us your college football spirit to be entered to win a trip to the Cheez-It Bowl in Orlando. Sweet, sweet moves.
I honestly, every week I'm impressed with my moves.
Honestly, they're the best part of that here.
I don't know.
That my painted head.
The seriousness with which you paint your head is pretty amazing. It's rankings reaction presented by Cheez-It. Here's your top 7, exactly the same as it looked last week. Michigan State at 7, Michigan at 6, Cincinnati still sitting on the outside looking in at 5, Ohio State at 4, Oregon at 3. Roll Tide coming in at 2, and Georgia at number 1. So no changes through any of the top 7, although we are still trying to figure out as a show if this will return to just a top 6 graphic after this weekend because Ohio State. That's the one thing.
Someone had to work hard to build that.
Ohio State wins.
Either way, whoever wins that game. Like, I got to imagine Michigan State beats Ohio State. Ohio State's not going to be in the. Wow.
Well, see.
It'd be 2 losses then. You can't have a 2-loss. Are we going to keep a 2-loss?
You can have a 2-loss team in the top 4 fits.
Yeah.
Hello.
See?
Don't you know how it works?
People don't forget that,
Did you
Jason.
get Gary Barta today?
See, that one probably doesn't apply to Michigan State because I don't feel like the committee has demonstrated a ton of, respect in that head-to-head with Michigan State. Does make it interesting if we get to the end of the year and we're talking about the game. Like if we're talking about Michigan and Ohio State, let's say Ohio State wins this one. You got Michigan that they clearly feel some type of way about. Ohio State, who, man, they could have a dominant offensive performance again potentially over Michigan State. That gets saucy.
Yeah, what gets saucy is what if both Michigan and Michigan State beat Ohio State, right? They both get the big win. I know because of the tiebreaker, Michigan State goes to the Big Ten championship game. They won't be playing a juggernaut of a team in the so you like your conspiracy theories? They'll be playing Wisconsin, right?
They'll be playing a ranked team from the Big Ten West.
We just keep saying, why is Wisconsin ranked so high? Because they want to make sure that Big Ten title game gives somebody a ranked win.
They know, the committee knows what they're doing. They know, okay, I know. Here's the thing. There's no way they don't look at the schedule and say, who are these teams that we're putting in the top 6 playing in the future? There's no way that they don't look at that and say, well, these teams are going to go head-to-head with this team, and let's try to figure out how to actually, because here's the thing.
Boy, that's just a lot of work.
But they have to justify them being in the top. They have to justify it. And you can't justify, if somebody takes beats a team that's unranked or not in the top 25, they can't justify keeping a team in the top 6.
I'm going to simplify things like Mike said a few weeks ago, though. Is it possible that Wisconsin's just sort of like a top 15, 18 team?
I mean, listen, some of these Big Ten teams like Wisconsin and Iowa, I have just for my own mental health watched less after they got out of this. Listen, like we got a lot of time in here. Iowa's offense did not bring me joy, and so I am trying to protect my joy this fall, and I didn't look there. But as you continue to go, like, that defense still worked. Jim Leonard's defense at Wisconsin, were it not for a lot of the behemoths above them in the top 10, would probably get a lot more respect. So those are still teams with very respectable parts. They just don't put them all together well.
I also worry a little bit about the conspiracy theory of trying to keep everything ranked only because worry about what you can control, right? We've seen more AP teams lose to unranked teams, AP ranked teams lose to unranked teams this year than any year in history. We've seen more top 10 teams upset than any year in history. If the committee is sitting there trying to figure out a roadmap for the future, they're every weekend they're like, oh, how many hours
Kansas just won a game.
Right.
Yeah.
Kansas won a big.
I was gonna say,
Kansas won a Big 12 road game for the first time since 2008. That is not a typo.
And I love the fact that
they
Kansas fans were chanting SEC. I love that.
Dude.
Troll them.
Let's talk about some tweets because since we're talking about the Big 12, Jake Trotter covers the Big 12, and he said, where would Oklahoma State be ranked if they had a blue blood logo on their helmet?
I mean, Oklahoma State's another one of those that, like, if you really want to eye test this thing here, Spencer Sandler's, wow.
Don't talk about the offense. Talk about the defense.
I'm like, listen, the defense.
We're just going to ignore one side of the ball.
Well, you're doing that with Ohio State.
I understand that. Well, no, listen. Ohio State's got the added benefit of we saw their defense hit rock bottom and get pushed around in a big-time way. Like, they got embarrassed against Oregon. And ever since then, it's gotten incrementally better. I think I read before the show they were like 39th in defensive efficiency right now. Like, there have been some improvements you can point to there with that one, as there are for Spencer Sanders and this Oklahoma State offense. But for the majority of the season, that hadn't been a unit that has really risen above to any occasion. It's been carried by what is an awesome defense, and that is dope. Like, the fact that Big 12 defense is a real thing now is awesome and should be celebrated.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think, and I love Jake. I just think that at the end of the day, I'm not sure that the committee's sitting in there and saying, well, they're Oklahoma State. Yeah, they're not Ohio State. We'll find out. I do wonder if there's a spot for me, and this is just my own personality, right? Like, if we're arguing about where Ohio State factors in, there's a spot for me where I'm just submissive enough in that situation where I'm like, guys, who cares? They're going to figure it out next week. So if you want to put them at 3, go for it. Like, well, it'll work itself out.
The notion that if they had a blue blood logo on their helmet kind of goes out the window. Freaking Cincinnati's ranked 5 right now.
Yeah, because the whole entire world is like coming for the committee's head.
So you think Cincinnati's getting more street cred than Oklahoma State? Like, that's the world we're living in?
No, I don't think that necessarily, but I do feel like the committee, Cincinnati is undefeated right now, right? And we talked last week about the fact that if Cincinnati was in the Big 12, they'd probably be making some waves, but they're not in the Power 5 conference. There's no way in the world. I think the committee is like, okay, let's just put Cincinnati in the top 6 because we know that they're not going to be in the CFP at the end of the season.
Easy question. Do you think today Oklahoma State is better than Ohio State? Okay.
No.
Then what are we yelling about?
No, here's the thing. But the thing that I said to Gary Barta about the blind resume, actually, Oklahoma State does have a better blind resume than Ohio State, and they have more ranked wins, and they have those wins by a larger margin.
But Ohio State has better metrics than Oregon, as Mike pointed out. So, when do we end the comparisons? Like, that is the toughest part for the committee. Like,
well, and I mean, listen, that's college football. Like, all of this is inexact. The scheduling is an absolute cluster bleep 90% of the time with the amount of teams you have. So this is the only place that we can possibly live 90% of the time. For Oklahoma State, that Baylor win keeps looking better and better and better as the weeks go along. Like, that got a huge leg up when Baylor did what they did to Oklahoma this past weekend here. Because, again, we can look at Ohio State's schedule and say the thing that Gary Barta was talking about. Where is their marquee win? Right now, Baylor's got a better win than anything Oklahoma State's got a better win than anything on Ohio State's schedule.
Right.
So
exactly. That's the other conversation. But let's talk about Kyle Beachy. He says the college football playoff is a farce. Give us a 12 or 16 team playoff. Time and time again, the committee shows their incompetence. Michigan ranked ahead of MSU because of statistics is a joke. They played. Spartans won. Cincinnati deserves a shot.
You didn't like the BCS computers. You're not going to like this. You're not going to like the 12 or 18 playoff that we give you coming up here. This is an accepted version. It will be better that way. I absolutely concede that, but we will always be upset. That's not a reason not to do it because I believe we should, but that's not a reason that we'll end up ever being not upset.
Million thoughts on it. We have plenty of time to get into it.
Playoff. Let's
oh
do
my
that.
God. All right. In the meantime, the one thing this show, Rankings
them.
Reaction, presented by Cheez-It, Mike Golic Jr., Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. What we like to do here is have a little bit of fun, and we have a Taylor Swift stan, can we call it? Like
100%.
super fan?
Stan.
Oh, yeah.
Are you gonna
yeah.
Yeah, all right. So we're gonna do a little bit of college football, college football, Taylor Swift love coming together, where we're gonna take some different Taylor Swift themes and we're gonna apply them to college football teams.
I was gonna say, why are you calling them themes?
Yeah.
You worked in music.
Here's a theme from Taylor Swift.
Here's a popular theme from Taylor Swift from back in the day. I knew you were trouble. Texas. The Longhorns, despite being 31-point favorites against Kansas, lost their 5th straight for the first time since 1956. I am on the call for their game against West Virginia this weekend.
Oh, that should be good. That should be good.
Where bowl eligibility is very much on the line for Steve Sarkisian's first-year team. But that has been after a 4-1 start, it has been nightmare fuel for them.
Can you make sure that you talk to, because you'll talk to Coach Sarkisian this week. I would respect it so much if you would spend roughly 51 seconds telling him how great he is before you ask him a question that doesn't have an answer, just to be a continual.
That is true. Listen, go with the theme of the week here. Prospective media people, young people, gather around. Don't do that. That 51-second rambling question to nowhere.
Yeah.
By the way, not for nothing, I Knew You Were Trouble. Incredible song. And the song that I listened to every morning on the way to training for my pro day when I was working out in Scottsdale.
Oh, wow.
I woke up with Taylor Swift every day. Red was a very important album to me.
And I agree. I think it's actually one of her best. And as you know, I voted for that album. I gave that album the
Grammy voter.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Slight flex.
All right. Let's go next to sad, beautiful, tragic.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Florida.
Florida.
I mean, how do you get, the fact that Florida gave up 42 points in the first half to a school that most people had to Google to find out where it is in the country speaks.
A school that most people looked at and thought was Stanford and then went, oh my God, there's an M in there and no T. What is Sanford and why are they scoring so many points?
Stanford is in Florida. I had friends that went to that school.
No, I thought it was in Georgia.
No, it's in Florida.
Do they have a little puppy dog on the side of their helmet?
And then celebrating.
Oh, this I have no problem with.
Yeah, I mean,
winning football games is hard. Everyone is coming after your head coach.
Okay, we both are very wrong. It's in Alabama.
I have friends that went there.
Okay, then I had friends go somewhere else. They didn't go to Stanford.
We were close. Geography, not our strong suit.
By the way, college kids are allowed to celebrate wins when they come by. Winning is really hard here. They just had to fire their D coordinator. Everyone down there wants to fire Dan Mullen now. We'll talk to Richard Johnson in a bit, who is actually a Florida grad, as well as someone who works great at the SEC network for us here. But I got no problem getting Buck in the locker room.
I also love the amount of people that have never been there before that say, act like you've been there before. I mean, it's just one of those things.
Wise man once said, act like you're never going back.
All right, so let's go next to I'm Feeling 22. Now, this was interesting because I Googled it. It was 34 degrees during the game, and it started with one Indiana fan deciding that he was going to take off his shirt to protest the way they were playing at the time to Rutgers. And so,
understandably so,
all of a sudden the entire student section decided to do it.
I like the one guy with the hoodie and the jacket still on.
Yeah, that's called common sense. Like, there's one guy there. There's one guy that's like, no.
Listen, that is peak college, though. Not only in your desire to do stupid stuff like that, but to be clearly intoxicated enough to where that's not going to affect your outer temperature. Like, that's the beer jacket in full force.
You wake up the next day, there's no way your nipples aren't sore from that level.
I mean, you wake up the next day, though, and you're not hungover because you're in college.
Yeah, they're cold. Like, your nipples being out in that level of cold for that long, Christine, I can't, no.
Never have I ever experienced that, so I wouldn't know.
I'm sorry, I live.
I once at ESPN took off my shirt and had someone cover me with condiments in an attempt to join the Bills Mafia in the dead of winter. So I have been outside experiencing that same nipple chill, but also covered in condiments.
What's happening?
I have so many questions at the end of the day.
I got a lot of time and answers.
Was it ketchup and mustard? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, ketchup and mustard. Was relish involved?
No relish. It was strictly ketchup and mustard.
Okay. Was there an immediate shower afterwards?
No, I just kind of toweled myself off because I had to go back in and finish doing the radio show.
Was it yellow mustard? Was it Dijon mustard?
It was yellow mustard and standard red, like tomato ketchup. None of that organic stuff. It had all the sugar in it, too. My body just absorbed it through osmosis.
All right.
Like those kids could or should have in that spot here. I applaud them. That is true home field magic on display right there. I know 9 Indiana is a thing of the past at this point, but...
I think if you're trying to get into the Cheez-It Hall of Cheese, rubbing yourself in mustard is probably a good start. Let's go next to Holy Ground. And we'll start with the words of Taylor Swift. On Friday, November 12th, Taylor Swift's Red, Taylor's version, broke the record for the most streamed album in a day by a female, and Taylor broke the record for the most streamed female in a day in Spotify history.
Amazing.
An incredible, incredible day for Taylor Swift. That takes us
to Matt Araiza, the absolute punt god from San Diego State, who has an NCAA record 17 punts over 60 yards, already the most in a season in FBS history. Going to break the record for most punt yards in a season. And you see right there, 52.3-yard average. He also kicked the game-winning field goal in their game against Nevada with about a minute left in that one. Very hard skill sets to execute at once here. This man is an absolute weapon with a howitzer attached to his hip.
I mean, it does speak to, as I talked to Kirk Morrison last week, famed San Diego State alum, it speaks to the field position issues that they've had as an offense that he can just whale them like that.
That was a 79-yard punt.
79 yards.
That was a damn near 80-yard punt down to the 1.
I can't wait till this year when we're covering the NFL draft and the camera zooms in on my face with the 8th overall pick when my beloved Raiders take a punter that's also a
punt god, Greek mythology.
The punt
I can't even put that ethos into the universe.
Punt
I
god.
can't do that.
You know he's coming to the team.
I mean, first round pick, they'll get in my ears. They'll be like, I can't believe they took him.
Run from it, dread from it. Destiny arrives all the same.
Is it too early to start drinking when I think about the NFL draft for that?
Not if you're in those IU student sections.
Interesting, though, that he, to your point, he kicks field goals and he punts.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a level of, we've never seen, I shouldn't say never. Somebody's going to tweet me that I'm a moron. You're right, I am. We rarely see that in the NFL. I can't think of anybody that's done both reliably as their only job. I don't know if he can do that reliably as his only job, but if you could save a roster spot and only have one kicker, woo!
Emergency kicker. Listen, you're giving him a roster spot anyway because he just punted the dang ball 80 yards.
I got nothing. Okay. You're right. Hey, we'll get thoughts. I don't know if Richard Johnson can punt the ball 80 yards, but there's only one way to find out. Richard, we appreciate you hanging out with us.
Wow, I'm so far away.
We were just, What
the hell is going on here?
We're keeping Cheez-Its in the shot. That's the smart thing. Richard, thanks for hanging out with us, man. We were just talking about, obviously, Florida better than most. So let's start there. I mean, we watched a Florida team that gave up 42 points in the first half to a school that most people had never heard of. What's wrong? How does it get fixed?
They look like a team that was being coordinated by a defensive coordinator that had not called the game yet and needed to get his feet wet. I mean, they had plenty of operational issues trying to get guys on the field, all that kind of stuff. It was a mess on Saturday. It was a mess until they pulled it out at the end against FCS Samford, which is just an incredible sentence. They are not in a good way right now. And, the South Carolina loss was pretty embarrassing. It was one thing. It was a game that they were supposed to win. And because they lost that game, then go out and play the way they did on Saturday, you look at the last two games and you're like, could they lose again to a bad Missouri team? And then you get into a rivalry game against Florida State, who's going to run that famous counterplay that Florida hasn't stopped all season. And what do you really have here for Florida? I'm not going to be a dance cop and police the dancing. They're 20-year-olds. They want a football game. Have a good time. But, it's beating Samford is not exactly an achievement to write home about. And the fact that was in doubt for 3-ish quarters is that's not good.
You didn't like them getting lit in the locker room after?
Oh, you're close now.
Hey. I'm back on the show like everybody else is. Let's talk about another mess that happened this weekend because Texas lost to Kansas, who now has 2 wins on the season. They had a reason to actually be hyped. What was your reaction to that game?
I look at the list of longest losing streaks that Kansas snapped. There are like 5 different lists of longest losing streaks that Kansas was on the top of that they broke in this game. This was the most classic Kansas way to do this. Remember against Oklahoma, they were up in that Oklahoma game, looked like they were going to win it, looked like they were going to get it done. You know, they tweet out all the fans show up and they're unable to get it done. And in this game too, I mean, they brought it down to the wire. You could tell Lance Leipold knew that if they went through any more overtimes, they were just exposing themselves to potential heartbreak. And so he said, let's end it now. Let's go for 2 now. Either we win or we lose and everybody goes home. But we left it out all on the field. And for that, Kansas, I tip my cap to you.
Yeah, playing to win instead of not to lose, a very novel concept in college football and in sports in general here. Richard, I do want to take a look at some of what's gone on at the top of college football right now. We had Ohio State that went out here and made sure that people got to stop making the spoiler maker pun for the rest of the season. They get a marquee win here. The committee clearly is loving up Michigan. We've got that game still looming down the stretch of the season. Are you at the place where you are ready to talk about the possibility of the game not going the way the game has gone recently?
No, sir, I am not. There was a point in time, there was a brief point in time on Saturday when I thought Michigan was doing well against Penn State. I thought, you know what? Maybe this is Michigan's year. And then Penn State comes back in that game a little bit, and then Ohio State does what they did to Purdue, and you're like, yeah, I'm not sure this is going to go either way. So look, you've got Ohio State. They get both Michigans over the next couple of weeks. They take care of both Michigans. But I want to posit this to you, one Michael Golic Jr.
Uh-oh.
If Ohio State does away with both Michigans and maybe Cincinnati stubs their toe, I am looking at one University of Notre Dame sitting right there at number 8. How are we feeling right now?
We are feeling very surprised by all of this, Richard, because you have watched the same Notre Dame team that I have this season. And for the first half of it and change, I did not think this was a conversation we should be anywhere near. And I closed my eyes, kind of like someone who got unexpectedly thrown out onto the kickoff return team, and I prayed to God I would survive the hit. And now we have come out on the other side, and this Notre Dame team has improved vastly across the board. The offense is finally getting more continuity and production from the offensive line. Kyron Williams is finally getting what he deserves up front. And as I heard, you point out on the podcast Split Zone Duo, Marcus Freeman has held that defense together despite a ton of attrition on that side of the ball. So they've played their way into the conversation, Richard, but I still have very real concerns about Oklahoma State sitting behind them with the potential to run through the Big 12 championship and any number of machinations. I don't think Notre Dame's a top 4 team right now, but they've put themselves in position.
I mean, can we just acknowledge, like, this is all positivity from Mike. He's not realizing that if they get in as the 4 where they're just going to get thumped by Georgia. So yet again, he's going to lose by like 80.
I was walking him into it. I was trying to get him there because you'll assume that Georgia, given the regional distinction that they give the number 1 team, that Georgia will end up in Miami. And look, I'm not saying Notre Dame has had a bad time against an SEC team in Miami before, but I'm just saying.
Richard, all I'm just saying is I was there. Like, that was my ass that got kicked in that game. So watching Notre Dame get beat by somebody else, this just means I get more issued gear swag now that I don't have to get hit for that's got a CFP logo on the side. This is about taking care of me.
Swag, he never gets any of us, by the way. Hey, Richard, before we let you go, who are you? If you were on the committee, give me your top 6.
I'm honestly pretty good with this 6. Like, I honestly do think Oregon might stub their toe against Utah either this Saturday or if they play Utah a second time in a couple weeks in Las Vegas. So I'm not so sold on Oregon right now, but, like, I don't know how you stack this up really any differently. Like, I get it. I know people are going to quibble with Michigan in front of Michigan State because of the head-to-head, but, man, Ohio State's probably going to make that moot over the next 2 weeks anyway.
Check him out on Thinking Out Loud. Check out the podcast Split Zone Duo, man. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Thanks for the expertise, and thanks for walking Mike in to let me troll him. I really appreciate it. That's most important.
Thanks, friends.
All right, so speaking of trolling, I had to get that off my chest.
Why does everyone want, like, listen, you guys act like it could hurt me anymore. I'm so dead inside.
You say that now.
I would just like to say that I don't troll you.
Because you're a good friend.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you.
I don't.
You just said you just.
You literally just said that out of your mouth.
I don't bring it up, but when you're, like, much like you don't, if the Raiders lose, you don't text me, nice game, But if I'm around here gallivanting, running my mouth, you're the first to remind me that.
No, you're always running your mouth. That's not a thing you have to worry about. That's a when.
Speaking of running my mouth, it is that time. For our way more important rankings, we like to end every show, and we rotate. And I thought because of your fandom of Taylor Swift and the fact that she put out a new record, or a re-release of an old record, we should say, her own versions. Since she did that, I decided I would rank something for her. So you ready for this?
I'm nervous.
This is the top 6 female current artists that are absolutely better than Taylor Swift. All right, at number 6, we'll start easy here. Demi Lovato. I'll never forget, I watched Demi Lovato at the White House for an event that we were all playing at. She went in and she sound-checked. Every other artist on there actually went up to at the time, President Obama went up and said, not singing after her. They had to reorder the entire show because Demi Lovato is that girl can sing. Girl can sing. So she goes in at 6. At number 5, this is where things get controversial. Put Miley in.
Oh, Miley can sing.
Yeah, Miley can sing. Last couple of records have been absolute bops. Like, they're full of a lot of good here. So far we're good. These are my top 6 artists.
I mean, regardless, it's going to be better than Taylor Swift. So I feel like Mike can't even say anything.
Well, so far we're good. All right, number 4. I mean, she's current because Christmas music has come out. Mariah.
That's a fair point.
I mean, nobody's sold more.
Old Mariah.
No, I mean, but the fact that there is old Mariah and current Mariah, I mean.
Current Mariah is struggling.
I mean,
this got dark.
Not that way, but we all heard that one time when she was singing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, but if we're going to talk about vocals that are just being raw, I'm not. I mean, I think they're.
She can make the dolphin noise. Are better than her current vocals.
Well, let's not talk about Taylor's in that sense.
Let me tell you what.
Number 3, Beyonce.
You got
but
some
it's kind
nerve.
of weird that you put her at 3.
I was gonna say, man, this is brave.
You better have Jesus and God at number 1 and 2.
Straight up, bro. This is on the internet, right?
Yeah. This is gonna be on.
This is on the internet.
He's lost his mind.
Number 2.
We don't. By the way, me and Christine don't co-sign her being a 3.
Number 2, Kelly Clarkson.
Okay,
Kelly Clarkson.
Thank you for watching Rankings Reaction.
Kelly Clarkson. Writes her tail off. She sings her tail off. She can do absolutely everything. She writes ballads and she writes up. She can do all of that.
Fun fact. When I was in middle school, I joined the Kelly Clarkson fan club so I could go to the meet and greet after her concert here in Connecticut. I have a picture with awkward prepubescent Mike Golic Jr. and dark eyeliner Kelly Clarkson from back in the day.
I've seen everybody on this list, incling Taylor. I've seen everybody but Miley live. I've seen all of them live. Kelly put on the best show. I can say that. I can say that. By far, put on the best show. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yo, you thought you were gonna piss me off with this?
Did you just say that Kelly Clarkson is a better performer than Beyonce?
She put on a better show that night. Yeah.
Oh man.
I'll say that. Top of the list for current female artists, better than Taylor Swift. Adele.
90% sure that Jason Fitz is on drugs.
Yo, I'm worried about you living through the night.
I feel good about this list.
97% sure that Jason Fitz is on drugs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I apologize to anyone.
I feel like this is a strong list. Is Kelly Clarkson the only one? Kelly Clarkson's the only one you have a problem with, and is it because she's that high on the would you put Beyonce at 1 then? Is that?
I wouldn't put Kelly. No offense, Kelly Clarkson. You're not in the top 6.
Okay,
wow. If you're gonna take one out, you got to put one in.
Anybody else?
Wow. Let me genuine question. Have you listened to very much Kelly Clarkson?
I used to listen to Kelly Clarkson when she first was Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, okay.
She also
I'm just shook by the fact that you put her above Beyonce.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually appalling.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And as a person that absolutely loves Adele also, I don't think she belongs.
Here's the thing with Adele. I would say that the only argument, the reason Adele was the toughest one for me to place, because what Adele does really well, she does better than anybody in the world. If you just want to sit there and listen to something, listen to somebody sing.
Just
and cry.
Have you ever listened to Beyonce sing live without a cappella?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Jason Fitz has lost his whole entire mind.
I am not here to have any sort of dialogue about Beyonce on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know where
Swifties are going to murder me, too. Nobody on this list is bad.
Bro, Swifties don't do the things that the Beehive does here. You don't poke that thing.
Yeah,
I'm scared to say it.
I've never in my life
All I will say is, Fitz, like in all honesty, it's cute that you tried to make this list to make me mad. I find it funny that it ended up making Christine angrier than anyone else.
I wasn't trying to make you mad. I just figured, given your fandom.
You kept it a secret all day because you thought it would make me mad.
No.
And it can't hurt me because you know deep down, as someone who voted for Red to win Album of the Year at the Grammys, what this is, what Taylor represents, what she has done for pop music, and where she belongs on that list.
And country music, by the way. Apparently they have another surprise
He's
for us.
supposed to be the music person. I don't understand this at all.
You have another surprise?
Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
Look
that
at
is
that.
amazing.
Christine, you're
That
burning
looks like
red.
it's real. That looks like it's real, by the way.
That actually does
I was
look
like,
like
did I?
Oh, no.
That looks.
That image
Somebody
is
clip that off.
cursed.
Somebody clip that off.
What face is this?
That image is cursed.
Somebody
oh my
clip
That
that off.
actually looks really weird.
Oh, that okay.
I'm pretty sure I was
Why
like,
did they put lipstick on you?
I don't know, but it's
yeah,
not
why
a bad
didn't I
look.
get a lip color?
Well, I mean, because we can't all be pretty, Mike.
For some reason, this looks all of the three of them, whoever did these is really good because they all looked real.
Is Photoshop their passion? If not, it should be their profession.
you
I guess
should be doing
technically it is their
I mean,
profession. They work here in
Christine's looked the best by far. That was solid work.
Because I look the best in general. But this is what I have to say. Don't anybody listen to Jason Fitz's takes on music either. His food takes are awful and his music takes. I never knew this before, but they're not great.
This has been Rankings Reaction presented by Cheez-It. Mike Golic Jr., Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back next week. We'll rank other things and we'll yell at the committee. It's a weekly tradition. There will be chaos because Michigan State and Ohio State play.
Beyonce
3.
all on his mouth like liquor.
Insane.
I'm good with that.